What I'd like to talk about is a motorcycle that came through our doors recently that we ended up purchasing from the owner. It was a little bit more than a handful of work to do, and they didn't want to do it. So I made them an offer, and we ended up with the bike. I didn't notice all the details that this motorcycle has to offer at first, but as I started to inspect it, I noticed quite a few things have been done at some point in its life that were interesting to me and I thought might be interesting to other people. Some modifications, including some engine mods and some performance stuff. I mean, it's not a race bike, but it's definitely somebody put some time and some effort and some money probably into this bike to do what they did with it. So let's talk about some of the things. I mean, the bike is it's a 1972 R60/5 is how it's the VIN number, and the bike has got matching numbers on it, and that's how it came out of the factory. Some of the modifications, to start with, the first thing I noticed was that it has dual plug heads on it. Somebody's done that modification with an electronic ignition, which wasn't uncommon, but then I started noticing other things. Well, obviously there was a 2-into-1 exhaust system on it. It's a pretty nice little performance system. It's got an oversized pipe on the back and a pretty free-flowing muffler with little or no baffle in it. It looks like a Kirker, but I don't know what the brand is. Who knows? But anyway, it's a little nifty little exhaust system it's got on there. And at some point too, I noticed that the final drive had been swapped out, I'm sure, to a higher gear ratio. It's more of a highway gear, I guess you could call it. It's the same gear that would come on an R75, which is a larger displacement bike with a 750, with more power to push it, the higher top end, higher top end speeds. It's a 3210 is what's on there. The bike would have come with a 3711, which is quite a bit of difference in the ratio, but the 3711 is a lot easier to get going. But it doesn't offer the higher speeds on the top end. It's going a lot faster to go a lot slower speed. So that mod was done, but then eventually I wanted to see what was going on inside the engine, just see how rusty it was, or how one of the pistons was actually stuck. So I wanted to see how bad the damage was in the cylinders. So when I pulled the top end apart, I noticed that the heads, for one thing, they're stock R60 heads. There's nothing special about them, which is kind of out of place because the valving on these is much smaller than the higher displacement engines. But the heads have been modified on the intakes. The thread-in collar, shim, whatever you want to call it, that the bings slide onto was removed, and somebody has welded some fixtures on here to add, this is a Mikuni intake along with a larger than stock, this is a 30 millimeter Mikuni carburetor. So you're going to be able to flow a lot more gases through your engine with that, a lot more air and fuel. So the last thing I noticed, and this is what really blew me away, I've never seen it. There's a lot of things I haven't seen, and this is one of them. The cylinders have been highly modified. The first thing I noticed was that I've cleaned this one up a little bit. I was trying to get the numbers off of it to see what size it was, because the first thing I noticed was that the top is flat. It even has an indentation this is a stock BMW piston. This is a 750 size, or out of a 750 engine. And all of these post-70 bikes are going to have a cap like that on them. And so this was like, I saw that, I thought, that looks to me like something different than a BMW piston. And I didn't notice it at first, but I noticed that this was a lot bigger than the stock R60 piston that would have been in there. Then I noticed that this being this is an R60 cylinder because of the way that they cut the fins and everything. That's how they are. They're unique in that way compared to the higher displacement engines. The bore, this is an R60 cylinder that I had, just a spare part that I had in the shop. this is the bore on it, and as you can see, the bore on this is quite a bit larger. After measuring and doing some research, this has been modified up to, let's call it an 850cc engine, which is crazy because these are cast iron inserts inside of these aluminum cylinders, which doesn't leave a lot of material here for the piston. You know, I don't know how durable this would be. Like I say, I'm not aware of a ton of modifications that were done to these bikes. Although, you know, not being from a racing background, I'm sure that people did all kinds of stuff. But anyway, that's pretty crazy to me that somebody would bore it out that much. Plus this bigger piston, what this ended up being after some research, this is a Volkswagen piston, which probably would have come out of an old Beetle engine or bought new or whatever. It was something that was available, that was out there, that maybe, who knows, maybe this was a common modification. Maybe this is what somebody knew to do. Maybe, I don't know. I'm not, you know, some of the old timers probably know there were probably modifications that were done more commonly on these bikes that I'm not aware of. But really interesting stuff. You know, I'm sure they probably squeezed a lot more horsepower out of this bike between punching this thing out to you know, 250 more cc's, which is a lot, you know. And with the dual plugs and the modified ignition and stuff like that. Of course, the timing, you know, you can get, you know, the dual plug, it offers its own performance aspect as well. So just an interesting bike, you know, just cool to see stuff that's come in that's been done over the years to these bikes. You know, it's not so common. You know, BMWs typically run pretty good the way they are out of the factory, but it's cool to see somebody doing something out of the norm, you know, or out of the ordinary. It's one of these bikes. So it's a little bit of history, I think, here. Pretty cool to see.